Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, and with me, as always, is your other co-host, John. John, how are you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing great. It is hate week.
It's hate week.
It's hate week.
It's hate week.
Boom.
There it is. So for those of you who are audio only, I am wearing a Gopher hat and shirt because it's hate week and it's Iowa week. And John is wearing a maroon shirt with gold letters. And on the front, it says, "Who hates Iowa?" And on the back, it says, "We hate Iowa."
That's right.
So that is a real Gopher cheer that we do at games, mostly at the Iowa game, but we occasionally will pull it out at other games, usually when we're leaving after a big victory or something like that. It's fun. It's a fun cheer.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of bad blood in this rivalry that goes back for generations upon generations. And so, you get pretty excited about it to get to play it every year.
That's right. And we got to keep Floyd home. He loves it here. Loves it in Dinkytown, Minneapolis.
He's got a pig pen. They don't even have a pen for him in Iowa, John. You don't even have a pen for him.
Disgusting.
Yeah, it's terrible. He's a pig. He needs a pen.
That's right. He doesn't feel safe there. I wouldn't.
No, of course not. God. Not in Iowa. All those farm animals. It's terrible.
You think they would know better, right?
All the corn. Too much corn. It's gonna be a big game.
It really is. It's gonna be.
And it is the Big Ten Saturday night game.
Yeah.
So I can hear the "Here Comes Saturday Night" song. I'm glad Fall Out Boy is still making. How much do you think NBC paid Fall Out Boy to write that "Here Comes Saturday Night" song? Like $1 bajillion. Oh
yeah. I mean, good for them. Good for them.
Good for them for staying relevant. Absolutely. That'll do it. That's a payday. I'm sure they wrote in like 45 minutes and were like, this is going to be the most lucrative thing we've done in 5 years.
Or more, I guess.
Or more, probably.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Well, so good for them.
Got to do what you got to do, man. It's all about the hustle.
It bops a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sing it or anything, but like it bops a little bit.
Yeah, man. No, it's good. It's exciting for both, for us as fans, for Iowa fans, obviously. Last year was a little controversial, even though the
correct call was made. Don't even say that. It was not controversial.
It was being taken as controversial. But it was the correct call. And that has been proven countless times at this point. So
by officials from the Big Ten Conference. Yes.
Yeah. So if you have an argument, or think you have an argument against it, just know that you don't. It doesn't exist. It is all made up in your mind. Yes. You're pretending that you saw something that just didn't happen. So that's what it is. But it's lots of things to look forward to. I'm really excited about it. This is obviously one of the games we look forward to every single year. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be
get it early this year.
We do final. Oh, good. Which I love.
Love that. No, It's great. I love we got last week, we got the Apple Cup and the Civil War, which was awesome this early in the year. And this week we get the pig game.
Yep.
And also we also have 2 other games that feature ranked against ranked Big Ten opponents as we get more into now it's week 4. So non-conference play isn't over yet, but we're mostly into conference play.
Yeah, I think this is when we're really going to find out who these teams are.
Yes.
This is what we talked about before in a podcast about how it's like, it's not really fair to give any power rankings or really understand exactly where all these teams, measure up within conference or, in all of college football until about 4 weeks in, I'd say. Yeah. And now I think we're going to see it. We're going to see who kind of comes out on top, where there's some problems here and there, and who may make it towards the end or may not. So it's exciting, man.
Good. And there are a lot of good games in the Big Ten, in God's conference, the Big Ten Conference.
That's
there
right.
are a lot of good football games this week, and we are going to talk about all of them.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Anything else you want to talk about, John, before we jump into this?
Absolutely. Yeah. You want to find We Live for Saturday? You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSAT. You can find Mike at Alibaba26, and you can find me, John, at Norwegian Gopher. You can also email us with any questions, thoughts, ideas, what have you, We live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com.
All right. Thank you for that. And if you are on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe. We give you, we bring Big Ten new episodes about the Big Ten to you twice a week during the season. We do a review of all the games and then a preview of all the games, which is what we're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
So, without further ado, should we get into this?
Let's do it.
Week 4 in the Big Ten, first week of real conference play. John, this is when my blood gets pumping.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to go.
It's exciting, man. Me too. Yeah. Finally, we're here. Yeah.
We are here. We have made it. We are here. Excuse me. All right. This first game takes place on Friday, September 20th. Got a Friday night game. We've got the number 24 ranked Illinois Illini heading to Lincoln to play the number 22 ranked Nebraska Cornhuskers. This is a 7 p.m. game on Fox. The line is Nebraska by 7.5. On offense, Nebraska is getting a healthy 6.5 yards per play. Illinois is also just over 6 yards per play. So both offenses have been very respectable through the non-conference on a per play basis. Conversely, Illinois is giving up about 4.5 yards per play, while Nebraska is allowing 4.2 yards per play. So in both instances, Nebraska has been a little better than Illinois, but not a lot better. And when you compare competition, these look like evenly matched teams in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And that's what struck me. That's why I wanted to highlight those statistics first, because I just think that shows how similar these two teams are, which is going to be really interesting. Both squads have playmakers on defense who can make life difficult for you. Illinois has the two Scotts in the secondary, Xavier and Miles Scott, who are no relation, have balled out, and that's been the catalyst for an improved Illini defense. Nebraska's star defensive tackle, Nash Hutmacher, among a plethora of other strong contributors. Nebraska's run the ball a little better than Illinois has, surprisingly, so far. That's the big question mark for me in this game is, can the Illini get Caden Fagan going? Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be the key if the Illini are going to win this game, is that Fagan is going to have to do a lot better. Through 3 games, he only has 173 yards rushing on just 4 yards per carry. So I think those numbers need to improve for this Illini offense. Good news for Illinois is that signal caller Luke Altmaier, John, appears to have taken a large step forward in year 2 as a starter. He's completing 69% of his passes for 8.3 yards per attempt, 6 TDs, and 0 picks, which was a problem last year, the picks.
Yep.
That is what you want out of your starting QB. And if he can keep that up, Illinois is going to win a lot of games. For Nebraska's part, Dylan Raiola has been even better, John, completing 74% of his passes with an almost identical to Altmaier, 8.4 yards per attempt, 5 TDs, and 1 pick. So what I'm saying is that these are two evenly matched teams on offense and defense. Nebraska has to has run the ball to date a little better than Illinois has, but now it's conference play. I think anything can happen. And so how are you seeing this breakdown, John?
Well, I think this is finally, it's about time that we see these teams face, pretty equally matched. It's not going to be a blowout. I don't expect anyways. We haven't really seen either team play other than, I guess, Illinois. Well, I shouldn't say either team then.
I was going to say Illinois played a tough game against Kansas.
Yes, Illinois played.
Although Kansas is not maybe as good as we thought they were.
That is true. Same can be said for Colorado. Colorado is not at all as good as anyone thought they could be.
Yeah, it's interesting. They have both been disappointments, and those have been the measuring stick games for Illinois and Nebraska so far. So it's hard to say, in some ways it's hard to say a lot about these teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is what when we talked about teams where we're going to find out who they are, where they stand, this is going to be it. We're going to find out who Illinois is. We're going to find out who Nebraska really is. They both have a lot of pros in a lot of areas on both sides of the ball. I gotta agree when it comes to Illinois' shot, though, of getting Caden Fagan going, and if they can't if they can't run the ball, it could be a long day. I mean, Luke Altmaier, yes, he's taken a step forward, but it's got to be he needs more help essentially against this very solid Nebraska defense, and especially that defensive line. So if you don't want Luke Altmaier running for his life, you got to be able to run that ball. And you also, I think what it's going to end up being is a lot of dink and dunk to be able to score on this defense, and not a lot going on down the field is what I can see. So I think it's a pretty evenly matched game. I know Nebraska is favored right now. Their quarterback has definitely looked a lot better, but I don't think they've really faced a defense like this. I don't think they've faced a competent defense at all.
7.5 is a lot of points to be favored by.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying Nebraska is not going to win, but more than a touchdown against Illinois, who, like we say with Illinois, they've been pretty good this year. And they've got Brett Bielema, who's one of the best coaches around.
Yep.
So he's going to he's going to have those guys ready to play. He absolutely will. We're going to learn a lot. I think it's interesting also to compare and contrast the wide receivers a little bit. I think Illinois might have the better wide receivers in Bryant and Franklin.
I agree.
Compared to Nebraska, but Nebraska has Nair, and then they have a handful of other guys challenging for opportunities. Jamal Banks is a guy that I would like to see him get more involved in the offense. He had that first game, he had that big touchdown catch. And then he's been kind of quiet since then, it feels like. So I'd like to see him get a little more involved, them try to get the ball to him a little more. But I just think this is a Big Ten game that's going to come down to which Big Ten team runs the ball better.
Yep.
I just think that's where we are with this, because I think both teams can make plays in the passing game, and I think they will. Both teams may have playmakers in the secondary, and I think they'll make plays too. So it'll be kind of a wash as far as that all goes. And it's just, to me, it's a matter of which team can get enough on first and second down that they're in third and short more often than not.
And to be honest, I mean, I understand and I know that Nebraska's had more success running the ball, but the defensive lines they've been facing have been incredibly weak and small. And I've at least seen Brett Bielema go up against a comparable defensive line, which I think was pretty solid in Kansas. So I think they've been tested a little bit more.
That's fair.
But we're gonna, obviously we're gonna see. I think this is more of a coin flip game than anything. I know.
Oh, me too.
I know more than mostly everyone is picking Nebraska to win this game. I am having a tough time, dude. I really, really am.
I went back and forth on this game a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I really dug deep. I started to look at advanced stats and, really getting into it. And just, I kept being struck by how similar these two teams are.
Yep.
In so many facets of the game. And, but when it comes down to it, for me, I think Nebraska has the better running game right now. And I think right now that's the difference in a close, hotly contested contest. I think both Rayola and Altmaier are going to make big plays, and I predict that each will throw an interception. At least one. I think we're going to see mistakes. And whichever team capitalizes off the mistakes is going to win, and I think it's going to be Nebraska because I just trust them to run the ball a little better. So I've got the Nebraska Cornhuskers 24, the Illinois Illini 20. So I don't think Nebraska covers. I think this is a coin. I think 7.5. I mean, to pick them to win by 8 or more points seems crazy to me. Not saying they can't. Of course they could, but I wouldn't be picking that because these are just such a closely matched game. But John, what's your score and who do you have winning?
Yeah, I don't ever like to doubt Brett Bielema. And to be honest, if this was on a neutral field, I would probably actually pick Illinois in this game. But this being a night game at Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Nebraska, I got to give the edge to Nebraska. I actually have them. I have Nebraska winning 23-20.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So we had very similar scores. Interesting. All right. Well, get ready for 4-0 Nebraska, John. Is the world ready? I don't know if it is. It's going to be a lot of crowing from Husker fans if Friday goes as they hope. A lot of it. Yeah, and they'll have the right to. They'll have the absolute right to crow.
That's true.
We will see it. But the same is true of Illinois.
That's also true. Yep.
Illinois has an opportunity here too. We've seen Bielema win games before when he looked like he was outgunned.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't think, like I said, I think it's just a razor's edge how similar these teams are.
Yeah.
So while I picked Nebraska, I don't have any confidence in that pick.
Neither do I. I think this could go either way. I really do. I could see, Bielema working his magic and coming out with a win, but I do think it's going to be incredibly close either way.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next game.
Mm-hmm.
All the rest of these games will be played on Saturday, September 21st. And this, John, is a game that I didn't have any trouble picking. We've got the Marshall Thundering Herd visiting the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Ooh.
This is an 11 a.m. game on Fox. The line is Ohio State by 40. That's 4-0, not 14. 4-0. 40 points. So Ohio State is expected to win this game going away, and they should. Marshall is 1-1 after a win over Stony Brook, and then they got shellacked by Virginia Tech 31-14. Marshall's played 3 QBs, John, and none have been very good or done very much. Stone Earl played the most, but his completion percentage is an abysmal Gavin Wimsatt like 44%. Braxton and Cole Pennington both fared better in limited action. Marshall's coming to Ohio State in the midst of a QB controversy as the Thundering Herd listed both Earl and Braylon Braxton as starters. And they also have Thundering Herd legacy Cole Pennington, who is the fan favorite, the third stringer that everybody wants to see. So Earl was the only one who took snaps against Vatek, and he didn't look great. Expect him to have a very short leash and for Marshall to potentially rotate QBs in this game. Marshall wants to run the ball with its backs, A.J. Turner and Jordan Houston. We'll see if they're able to do so against the number 1 rated defense in the country. The Silver Bullets are allowing an absurd 2.46 yards per carry. John, 2.46 yards per carry. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you had 4 downs and you ran the ball every down, you're not getting a first down.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's a crazy thing to do. So teams so far have been unable to move the ball against Ohio State. I don't expect this game to be any different. How do you expect this? How do you see this one playing out?
I see Ohio State winning by more than 40 points. I think it's going to be an absolute shellacking. It's in Columbus. I mean, Marshall doesn't stand a chance in my opinion. So
no.
If they get any points on the board, it'll be garbage time and they'll be lucky to just get a field goal at that point too. So I think this is an easy win. Buckeyes roll.
Yeah, I'm with you. Here's what I'm going to be watching, though. CJ Hicks. So it's pretty clear that Arvell Reese and Cody Simon are the 2 top linebackers for Ohio State. But Hicks was a 5-star recruit, opened the season as the starter, is still seeing meaningful minutes. He has not been good so far. He's already been usurped by Reese, and Gabe Powers is nipping at his heels. So this game needs to be a standout performance for Hicks. So I'll be looking to see if he can hold on, or is he going to be the next guy in the transfer portal that I want to come to Minneapolis? That could happen too. He could be that guy too. Then just the odd man out in a stacked linebacker room.
Yep.
I'm going to be watching Nickelback Jordan Hancock for the Buckeyes. He's been great this year. I think he's going to do big things against Marshall. And then it's a big week for Ohio State skill players: Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith at wide receiver, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins at RB. They should be able to go ham on this weak Marshall defense.
Mm-hmm.
So I have got the Ohio State Buckeyes 63, the Marshall Thundering Herd 0.
Well, I thought I was going to have the highest. I have Ohio State Buckeyes 56, Marshall Thundering Herd 0.
I just don't know how they're going to score.
I don't either.
And if they can't move the ball at all, Ohio State's going to have so many possessions.
Yeah.
And if they have so many possessions, even if they get conservative in the second half, they're still going to be scoring touchdowns.
Absolutely.
So
yep.
I think Will Howard could be done by halftime of this game, and the Buckeyes could still hit this number.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Buckeyes, we really are excited for you to play a real team.
Yep. Can't wait for that to happen.
That's going to be fun because this so far, it's very impressive, but there's only so much we can take out of it.
Exactly.
All right. Next up, we have the Charlotte 49ers coming to Bloomington to play the Indiana Hoosiers. This is an 11 a.m. game on the Big Ten Network. The line is IU by 28.5. Charlotte lost their first 2 games decisively to James Madison in North Carolina before getting off the couch and winning a thriller 27-26 over Gardner-Webb. So Charlotte has that one win going for it so far. They play 2 QBs in Max Brown and Deshaun Purdy. Neither's thrown the ball very well, and both have been prone to turnovers and sacks. Also, neither's a threat to run the ball. So there's that. Wilson and Hellman are the top backs, but neither's been featured very much. Charlotte's a pass-happy team, and they have had 4 receivers go over 100 yards for the year. They will need that kind of diverse passing attack against a good Hoosier defense. Ultimately, this game's going to be about Indiana and how the Hoosiers play. This shouldn't be a contest if IU is focused. I expect a lot of Ellison and Lawton running the ball, while Omar Cooper, Elijah Surratt, Miles Cross, and Miles Price continue making plays at receiver. IU can name its score here. Signetti seems to like to run it up. So let's say Indiana Hoosiers 45, Charlotte 49ers 10.
Okay. Well, yeah, I have the Indiana Hoosiers 42, the Charlotte 49ers 3. I don't think they're going to score a touchdown. I don't think it's going to be possible. I think you're absolutely right. I think Indiana is just going to roll. I think they're just going to get their players more experience. And I would like to see, though, I'd like to see the run game, be more, not that it didn't do well last week, but I want to see it be more dominant and use it more and get them ready for further Big Ten play, because they're going to need that. Curtis Rourke, obviously, we've seen what he can do. We've seen the receivers do what they can do. I just want to see that running game just kind of improve and continue to take some steps forward. That's what I'm hoping to see with this game.
Yeah, and I'm hoping Donovan McCulley comes back for this game too, because, well, they haven't needed him so far. When they get into the bigger Big Ten games, he's the best receiver in that room, man.
Oh, hands down.
So, they need him at some point.
Yep, 100%.
All right, next up, we have the Villanova Wildcats visiting the Maryland Terrapins. This is an 11 a.m. game on the Big Ten Network. There's no line because Villanova is an FCS team.
They're an FCS team who just barely beat the Towson Tigers, 14-13, and they were lucky.
Tigers.
Yeah. They were lucky to win because of a missed field goal right in the final seconds. So,
oh wow,
yeah, it was a rough showing. I gotta say, with Villanova, their strength is definitely their rushing attack. They were able to put together 235 yards last week with Isaiah Regland getting 141. And the vast majority of those carries. But again, this is against Towson, but their passing attack is really, really weak. They only Connor Watkins only had 14 completions out of 25, 116 yards, but he did throw 2 TDs. But this was the only 2 scores of the game. So. Look, Maryland is just going to be Villanova is going to be overmatched. Maryland should be able to do what they want to do here. And this is going to be a get-right game, kind of like be able to get their running game really solidified, getting their passing game. I think their defense needs to really show up and shut this team out. I don't think that, if they end up scoring any points, that could be problematic, even if they do run away with a victory. I want to see this be a shutout, or at least limited to field goals only. I don't want to see anybody get in the end zone. And I think Maryland can just continue to kind of hopefully see their offensive line gel and get a little bit better. It's basically just a glorified practice or a scrimmage here. So I think Maryland 49 to Villanova 0.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that Loxley calls off the Dogs early.
Really?
Like early. So I'm still going to say 42. I'm going to say Maryland 42, Villanova 3.
Okay.
I'm going to say they get on the board at some point. I'm probably late.
Yeah.
When Maryland lets down a little bit. But yeah, I don't expect this to be much of a competition at all. Honestly, the FCS games, I'm not sure how much more of these we should be playing.
I agree.
All right, next up, we have the Kent State Golden Flashes coming to Happy Valley to play against the Penn State Nittany Lions. It's a 2:30 p.m. game on the Big Ten Network. Line is Penn State by, get this, John, 48.5. So 7 TDs and 6 PATs. So they think they're going to get those but not that one. They're going to be at least one missed extra point somehow. I don't know how Vegas does its math, John. They're obviously good at it, but it doesn't totally make sense to me all the time. Like they're banking, like, let's put the over under on whether he makes an extra point. Like, okay, sure, I guess. But it's a correct line because Kent State's a terrible MAC team. They're 0-3 this year. There's no shame in getting blown out by Pitt and Tennessee, but they also lost to something called St. Francis, PA. Yikes. Kent State head coach Kenny Burns used to be Minnesota's RB running backs coach during the Mo Ibrahim days, and I wonder if he regrets taking a job at a place like Kent State that just lacks resources relative to the rest of the MAC.
Yeah.
It's a really tough job. I do not think it's a reflection on Kenny Burns that he's failing at that job.
Yeah.
I think it shows that Kent State is one of the toughest jobs in the country. And I hope Kenny Burns, even if he fails at Kent State, I hope he eventually gets another shot somewhere else, because I just think in the era of the transfer portal, being at not just a MAC school, but the worst MAC school is really hard.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you have any good players, they're gone. And so you have to recruit players with lower ceilings. Okay, that's great. But then you get a bunch of players with lower ceilings. Well, they also are lesser players.
Yep.
So you're just in a cycle. I don't have too much to say about this one. I'll tell you, Kent State's quarterback Devin Cargman is completing just 56% of his passes for just 5.3 yards per attempt. So that's not great. This offense lacks both consistency and explosion, which are sort of the two keys to any offense. He's also thrown 2 picks and been sacked 6 times in 3 games. So that's not great either. Kent State can't run the ball at all. It's brutal. Their top back is Minnesota transfer Kai Thomas, who's yet to break. Yes.
He's still there?
Still there.
Holy cow.
He's yet to break 100 yards for the year, despite 36 attempts.
And he was pretty good when he was here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I never liked his running style. He ran so up and down.
All right. Okay.
Like, he was pretty good, but I think you or I could have run behind that offensive line in 2021. That was
fair.
An elite Gopher offensive line.
That is fair. Fair point.
I mean, they were very, very good. At receiver, Floria and McCray are fine, so they might be able to do some stuff. But I don't know, John. Penn State's going to roll here. Drew Aller is going to slice up a bad Kent State defense. Tyler Warren and the Penn State wide receivers had better have a good day, as Kent State is bad, and Penn State needs to make more plays at the wide receiver position. So I'll be watching closely to see who's emerging at wide receiver and who Penn State focuses on, because that'll show me who they're trying to establish to focus to get the ball to going into Big Ten play. But also Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, they're going to run the ball at will. So I've got the Penn State Nittany Lions 56, the Kent State Golden Flashes 0.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to see them find a wide receiver, man. I want to see someone that comes consistently down with the ball, that's a playmaker. We need to see that. Penn State needs that if they want to be as competitive as they hope to be here in the conference this season, which a lot of people still have a lot of high expectations.
Yeah, despite the Bowling Green game.
Yep.
Oregon showed you can have some bad games and then bounce back and be awesome.
Absolutely. So this is the game.
Can Penn State bounce back and be awesome?
Yep, and they're going to have to show it here, which I think they will. Yeah, I have Penn State. I have them 48, Kent State 6.
Okay, right on. So you're saying not covering?
Yep,
that's fair. All right, next up, John, we have a big game. Some would call this, not you or I, because we're biased, but some would call this the biggest Big Ten game of the weekend. We have the number 11 USC Trojans coming to Ann Arbor to play against the number 18 ranked Michigan Wolverines. It's a 2:30 p.m. game on CBS. The line is USC -5. So the drama in Ann Arbor, John, is out of control. Yeah. So to recap the season briefly, Sharon Moore thought Alex Orji was so impressive in spring ball, he let people know that he was the guy and that the offense would revolve around him and didn't seek a transfer quarterback. Then during fall camp, Orji played so poorly that Michigan had no choice but to make Davis Warren their QB. Then last game, Warren, who hasn't played well at all, threw 3 picks, leading Michigan to go back to their original plan of Alex Orji, and they plan to start Orji at USC. So Orji was supposed to be the starter, but then he was so bad he lost his job. But his replacement was even worse, so now he got his job back. Can he keep it? Will Jack Tuttle re-enter this competition at some point? That's up to Alex Orji and these Wolverine wide receivers. They will determine if they play well enough to earn their spots or if they play so poorly that Michigan has to turn to a third QB in desperation. Orji's just 3 of 6 on the season for 15 yards. A big question I have is how run heavy will they be under Orji? I expect it to be pretty run heavy, but is it like 60-40 run pass? Or are we talking like 70-30 service academy level running the ball? That's the question. The former is normal. The latter would be extreme in this day and age, especially for a team as high profile that recruits the way that Michigan does. Can Orji make plays downfield? I don't know, man. Can he? Can Michigan's receivers get open and make plays for the ball for their QB? I'm not sure. They weren't great for Davis Warren. Are they going to be better for Alex Orji? Will that open up more one-on-one matches because Orji can run the ball that teams will be forced to commit more players to the box, and then that's going to open up the passing game finally? I'm fascinated to watch.
Yeah.
The good news of the running back is that Khalil Mullings has been sensational, averaging over 7 yards per rush. The bad news is that cover of the college football video game, Donovan Edwards, has been, I'm going to say, inexcusably inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
For a guy who has the experience and talent he has, there's just no way he should be averaging 4 yards per rush behind that offensive line. None. That's not good enough for a players like him in a scheme like Michigan's. He's got to be better, and he's got to be better this Saturday against USC. Mm-hmm. A Michigan team struggling to pass needs its absolute best efforts from its 2 dynamic running backs. Mullings has been consistently dynamic this year. Edwards hasn't, but we know he can be electric when he wants to be. Mm-hmm. Donovan Edwards better show up motivated on Saturday, or it's going to be a long day for this Michigan running game. And then, John, have you heard anything about Colston Loveland? Do we expect him to play?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything official yet.
No, me either. And I think they really need him in this one.
Yep.
He's by far their most reliable receiving option. But it's up to, man, guys like Samaj Morgan at wide receiver, Frederick Moore need to step up. Somebody's got to step up and make plays and help out your young, inexperienced quarterback in his first start of the year. The blowout loss to Texas and the uneven performances in their other 2 games leave a lot to be desired so far for this Michigan squad. This was a key game, and if they can win it, it would be a big deal, and their season would be back on track. John, in contrast, the Trojans are coming off a bye week, have 2 weeks to prepare. They're feeling great about themselves. They've been playing lights out, chomping at the bit to get another ranked victory after their opening night tilt over LSU. So the question to me is this. Up until now, USC's defense has played pretty well. Can they keep it going against Michigan? Or will the physical nature of this Wolverines team and renewed running attack run over D'Anton Lynn's unit a little bit? Because USC is going to score points, period. Mm-hmm. So is Michigan going to be able to be physical enough, be tough enough, be dynamic enough to keep up? And that's my question. So what do you think? What do you think about this game, John?
I think this is a really interesting matchup. If the Michigan we were expecting to see shows up in any kind of way, if they're able to be even just competent in the quarterback position, that'll be a massive help here, I think, against this USC team. And if they're offensive, if they can be as dominant at the line of scrimmage on both lines of scrimmage that we expected them to be, I think this could be more of it could be a closer game than what maybe people are expecting. If that happens, do I think that's going to happen? I have no idea. So far, it's been quite a mess in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say this about USC though. After watching, and I'll talk about it a little bit more, the LSU and South Carolina game, I'm not so sure that LSU win was as impressive as what people have thought, and maybe giving USC a little bit too much credit at this point in time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, LSU was defensively horrible.
LSU was lucky to win that game.
Yes, absolutely. They were very lucky to win that game. So, I'm not saying USC is bad. I think they definitely are going to score some points. Are they going to be able to run the ball? I don't know, but they don't need to.
That's a big question.
They don't really need to at this point, or they've shown that they don't need to, but we'll see against this defensive line, which is still very good despite how their performance has been, because we have, like I've said, I think in a previous pod, we've seen what they can do when they're at the top of their game. And if they show up, this could be a problem for USC's offense. And same thing with Michigan's offensive line in their running attack. Can USC's defensive line handle that, for a full 4 quarters. So this could end up being a lower scoring game than what people are expecting. It could be closer than what people are expecting, but again, that really all depends upon a lot of Michigan showing up the way that we think they still can.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I just think, man, you look at Miller Moss for USC at quarterback. He is completing 73% of his passes for 9.2 yards per attempt, 2 TDs, no picks.
Mm-hmm.
But this Michigan D is a lot more imposing than anything USC has seen so far.
Oh, yeah.
And you can bet that people have been telling this Michigan defensive line that they're underachieving.
Yep.
They must be hearing it. Graham and Grant must be hearing that they aren't living up to the hype of what they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
So what better way to announce to college football you're still here than to come out against USC and just lay it to them and make it hard and make it so Woody Marks can't run the ball. And so Miller Moss is running for his life back there, having to get the ball out right away or else he's going to get crushed. If Michigan can be that Michigan team, they can win this game.
Yep.
But I think they have to be that team because I just don't know how many points you can expect an Alex Orji-led offense to score. Yeah. That's my issue, is where are the points going to come from? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying they're not going to score any. I think they're going to score. But are they going to score enough to keep up with an offense as prolific as USC?
Mm-hmm.
That, for me, is the big question. And that's where I'm worried about Michigan a little bit.
Yeah. I'm worried about Michigan, but I also think that playing at the Big House could help them. Having home field advantage is going to be a big thing. And the fans are going to show up for this game.
Oh, absolutely.
In a big
Even
way.
The wine and cheese eating Michigan fans will show up for this ranked USC game, and they will be there. They'll go hard.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be ready. I know sometimes people say the Big House isn't that loud. I think it's going to be loud on Saturday.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah. All right. What do you have for a score? I'm so curious because we don't discuss our scores in advance because I always want to be surprised on the air by what John does.
I have an upset.
Okay.
I think Michigan has so much more to prove.
Yeah.
No, everyone is down on them. Everyone is doubting them. And like you said, if you think the players have not heard this, especially players who have proven to be game wreckers.
Yes.
If you think they're not showing up and hyped to go and prove that they can run over this USC offensive line and threaten Miller Moss all day, then then you don't know what's coming your way. And I think USC fans, be ready for that. Be ready to see that your quarterback might be running for his life more often than you would like to see.
Yep.
I do think USC is going to score points, but I do think this is going to be a lower scoring game.
Okay.
I think it's going to be close. And I see Michigan 26, USC 23.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's wild. I could see it playing out that way. You make a good case for sure. But for me, man, I just can't count on Alex Orji. I can't count on him because I just don't know. And maybe if I could go see a Michigan practice, I would feel differently.
Sure.
But we just haven't seen him do enough. And all the times he's played at Michigan, I haven't seen him throw the ball enough to know if he can do it well enough. We know he can run the ball well enough, right? Yeah. We know he can do that. Can he throw the ball well enough in a game like this? That's what I don't know. And that's why I have the USC Trojans 27, the Michigan Wolverines 20.
Wow. Okay.
So...
Well, maybe it's Tuttle time, man. Maybe it is Tuttle time in Ann Arbor. That's what I want to see.
If they don't win, they almost have to try it, don't they?
Yeah, I think they do. I think they have to.
Like if they lose to USC and then they're coming in and they're going into that next stretch of games, they can't be. If Alex Orji isn't it, man, you gotta give Tuttle a chance. Man, I can't believe we're talking about Michigan giving a third quarterback a chance. This is crazy. This would have never happened under Jim Harbaugh.
No, but Tuttle's got the years of experience, though, man. I mean, if nothing else, at least you could hope he would protect the ball. Like that. That's it.
Yes, protect the ball. get it to his checkdowns.
Yep.
You know, keep the offense on schedule, do that kind of stuff. I could see that for sure. Yep. But Alex Orji could also come out and ball out. He could come out and be awesome. Maybe he throws the ball better than we're thinking. Maybe he runs for 150 yards. You know, that's totally on the table. Maybe Michigan just mauls USC up front. I think that could happen too. So I did pick USC, but again, I don't have a ton of confidence. It's still hard early in the year. We're still learning so much about these teams each week.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have the UCLA Bruins going to Death Valley and visiting the LSU Tigers. This is a 2:30 p.m. game on ABC. The line is LSU by 24.
This game, oh man, I know I just got done talking about LSU maybe not being that impressive of a win because of watching the South Carolina game. And South Carolina was able to just run the ball all over LSU's defense.
Yes.
And LSU had trouble tackling. There were busted coverages. Even though South Carolina didn't throw the ball particularly well, they were able to run and cause a lot of issues with LSU's defense, which is where the problems were. There were also just a ridiculous amount of turnovers in that game. It was absurd. Just how crazy it was. And just penalties all over. It was just a mess, man.
Yeah.
So LSU escaped with a win, but they didn't look good doing it at all. But here's the thing. UCLA looked even worse against Indiana last week.
Dude, UCLA makes Colorado look put together.
Yeah. And I feel bad saying that, but it's the truth.
They're rough. They're one of the worst power conference teams I've ever seen in my life, I think.
They're in really rough shape. And I think even though LSU has issues on defense, I don't know who's capable of really scoring points against that defense.
I can't believe the line's only 24.
No,
I can't believe it's only 24.
That's crazy to me as well. I think that's nuts.
If I were a gambling man, I would be hammering LSU.
100%.
Hammering it.
100%. And I'm sorry. And even so, like, you know, let's say like they are able to find miraculously some success running the ball or moving the ball downfield. You're competing against Garrett Nussmeier, dude.
Yeah.
Like the guy he's
a machine.
He's a stud. He's accurate. He's got a strong arm. He sees the field very well. I mean, he's a smart player, and they have enough. They've got solid receivers that they're going to be able to throw to, and their running game is pretty. It's okay. You know, Caden Durham is a solid back. You know, they've got a decent backup with Caleb Jackson, so they can run the ball enough to open up that passing game, and they will. And that offensive line is pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. But having Garrett Nussmeier back there just helps everything because he makes quick enough decisions and he gets the ball out real fast.
Yeah.
And I just don't think with what we saw last week, with what Curtis Rourke did to them, that this is going to be any different. I think that defense is going to get destroyed through the air. I think LSU is going to move the ball pretty much at will. I don't see how UCLA has anyone that is going to be able to challenge that. They might get lucky on a few plays because LSU's defense is not that great, but they're not going to be able to withstand that offensive onslaught from LSU. So unfortunately, you know, I just think UCLA is absolutely going to get destroyed here again. I think it's going to be, we've said it before, it's going to be a really long season for the Bruins. They're just not ready for the Big Ten. And we've been saying that, even though I know a lot of national media talking heads, you know, made some arguments or saying that they might be like a middle of the pack or above average team in the Big Ten. And I'm sorry, but all of you were just wrong in every way.
You were wrong about how hard it is to join the Big Ten. Yeah. Which we predicted you'd be wrong about.
Yes. Which again, we'll see with USC. How good are they? You know, if Michigan's defense shows up. Now, this is obviously we're talking about UCLA here, but this is what we're talking about with some of these West Coast teams. But who knows? I see LSU. I see 63-7, maybe a garbage time touchdown.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've got LSU 52, UCLA 10. I think UCLA scores. I think they move the ball a little bit. because LSU's defense is bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once they figure out what UCLA is trying to do, they shut it down pretty well.
Yep.
All right. Next up, we have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights at the Virginia Tech Hokies. This is a 2:30 p.m. game on the ACC network. The line is Virginia Tech by 3.5.
This is an interesting game.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited for this one. There's been a lot of talk about Virginia Tech, like having this really good quarterback, and them being, coming and maybe having like a comeback year, and Virginia Tech looking a lot like they used to, type of deal. Another one of those, like, we want to go back to our childhood and
relive
Virginia
the
Tech
90s and the early 2000s.
Yep, yeah. So they're one of those teams as well. Maybe not as much as others, but still.
No, man, Frank Beamer reigned supreme for a long time.
He really did.
He was like consistently like not the first or the second or the third, but he was consistently like the 5th best program in the country.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Consistently. And it was all defense and special teams. They were, I mean, Frank Beamer was Iowa before Iowa, only he had better athletes doing it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I had to go back and look at some of these games, and really, obviously, the last couple matchups that Virginia Tech, where they were able to blow out just inferior competition. But I watched the Vandy game.
Yeah, I watched that game too when it happened.
And let's just say Virginia Tech, their quarterback does not look as great as previously advertised.
Kyron Drones, everyone acted like he was walking on water this offseason, and I don't know if I see it.
I don't know if I see it either. I mean, they will try to pass the ball because their run game is pretty much ineffective, at least against Vanderbilt. And I don't see it happening against this Rutgers defense, which I think has a much better defense than Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and defensively, Virginia Tech, they had a lot of trouble stopping Vanderbilt's running attack. Their run defense is horrible. They're giving up 5 yards a carry on average. And you now are facing off against Kyle Monangai. And I think he's just going to eat, man. I think they're going to be able to just feed him the ball. I think Athan will probably end up looking, pretty good again, because he's not going to have to do much. I think they're just going to be able to run the ball and score and just kind of, run the clock down and salt it away. Virginia Tech, their offensive line also just doesn't look good. So I expect Rutgers defense to be able to get a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And they're going to be able to shut down the pass with their secondary. I just don't see Virginia Tech being able to compete. They may score here and there early in the game, but I think the second half Rutgers is just going to run away with it, because Virginia Tech is going to basically just give up because they're going to be beaten into submission by this running attack. And
interesting. Okay. So what do you have for a score?
I have Rutgers winning 28-13.
Okay. Interesting. I don't see it being quite that dominant. I think Virginia Tech has some pieces and can do some things. And I think Kyron Drones is up and down, but I think he can make plays. That said, well-talented. Kyron Drones is a turnover risk, and he takes a lot of sacks behind this O-line.
Yeah.
A lot of sacks. Way too many sacks. So that plays exactly into Shiano's hands, into Rutgers' hands, forcing, and I just think Rutgers is going to have Virginia Tech in a lot of third and longs, and that's not going to go great. So I think Rutgers holds on in a tough one to win this game. 24, Rutgers Scarlet Knights 24, Virginia Tech Hokies 17. And I think Rutgers gets to 3-0.
Yeah, I agree. I think even if it's a close game, I think it's always going to look like Rutgers is in control.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right.
All right. Moving right along, we have another conference game, so get excited. We have the Northwestern Wildcats visiting the Washington Huskies. This is a 6 p.m. game on FS1. The line is Washington by 10.5. And I say it like that because, really? Anyway, after playing 2 overmatched opponents and beating both handily, Washington had its first taste of competition on Saturday, losing to in-state rival Washington State 24-19. They allowed Cougars QB John Mateer to make big plays with his arms and consistently extend plays with his legs. That dynamism was too much for a stodgy Steve Belichick coach defense. One of my worries with NFL DCs, legitimately, is that they aren't used to playing teams who have QBs who are legit running threats.
Yeah.
Because in the NFL, even if you're a running threat, you're getting a QB, you're getting paid so much money that they don't want to risk you running the ball any more than they have to. Whereas in college, they're just sending these guys out to run, be like, go kid, run all day, have a good time.
Yep.
You know, like you're on scholarship. If something happens, we got another guy on scholarship. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you have to do at the college level. So I think a lot of times these NFL DCs don't, or defensive coaches don't know what to do when they come to this level with that kind of thing. That's part of the magic, but something that's hard for an NFL defensive coach to adjust to, because these guys play with reckless abandon. They're not worried about tomorrow. College QBs aren't like, I better not take this hit. They're like, I'm going to lower this shoulder and be awesome. Like they're not, it's a totally different mind frame than NFL players.
Yeah.
And I think because of that, that's a really different thing to play defense against. We'll have to see if Belichick gets better against mobile QBs, and he has a great test again this week in Northwestern's Jack Lausch, who's a legit running threat for the Wildcats in his first start, toting the rock 7 times for 62 yards with a long of 26. That's a dynamic athlete, and Washington will have to account for him every play. Northwestern also threw the ball better in Lausch's first start than it did under Mike Wright, with nearly 65% completions for a workman-like 7.3 yards per attempt. So this is still a dink and dunk kind of offense, but at least Lausch has the ability to push it down the field a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Porter has gotten going finally, and Northwestern needs to keep its top RB contributing in the run game. It's great to see Porter succeed after everything he's been through in his career. With the injuries, getting passed by Evan Hull, all the adversity from guys like us who didn't believe in him.
Mm-hmm.
So good for Cam Porter for playing well when given the chance. Henning and Kurtz at wide receiver are the key to this game, in my opinion, John. Northwestern has to find a way to get production out of its top 2 receiving options if it's going to have a shot against Washington. I went into this year thinking that I would pick Washington in this game for sure, but I think I'm picking an upset here. I just think it's a close game. I'm kind of surprised the line is 10.5 in Washington's favor. I don't know what they've done to justify being favored by 2 scores over anybody, especially over a power conference opponent at least.
Yeah.
So to me, this is a coin flip, and I trust Northwestern's defense just a little more than I trust Washington's. So I have the Northwestern Wildcats 20, the Washington Huskies 17.
Yeah, I'm going with the upset too, man.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, 10.5 is wildly
like a lot, right?
That's out of bounds, man. After what I saw last week against Wazoo, this Northwestern team and this offense looks very, very similar to what they just faced and what they lost to, and that caused them fits all game long. You have a mobile QB who can also throw the ball, and you have an offensive line that I could make arguments are probably better than Washington State's offensive line.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see Northwestern shove Washington's defensive line around most of the game. I think they're going to be able to establish the run now that you have Lausch at quarterback and you have a pretty good running back, which obviously Cam Porter was able to do some things, but you also have Hyman back there. So, and if you can get Kurtz and Henning into the game, who are both dynamic wide receivers, that I just don't see how this is going to be. I don't want to say it's not going to be close. I do think it's going to be close because I think Northwestern's offense isn't meant to score a lot of points.
No.
And Washington still does have Will Rogers, who is great. And they have Giles Jackson, who is also phenomenal.
And Jonah Coleman,
who they can also put into the pass game, which you've seen them do that. And it's worked pretty well.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some big playability there for Washington to keep it interesting. But I just don't think they have it at the line of scrimmage, man. I think Northwestern is better equipped. I think David Braun knows how to play this kind of game. And this is the same thing we doubted Braun and Northwestern about last year. And look at what they were able to do. And I think Braun's going to have them ready to go. I do think it's going to be close because I do think Will Rogers and Giles Jackson and Jonah Coleman will be able to score. But I think Washington's defense just is not Big Ten caliber ready, in my opinion. Not now.
Yeah.
And so I have Northwestern winning 24 to Washington's 20.
Okay. So also a very close game.
Yeah.
Picking upsets, John. That's what we do here. We pick hey, I got my upset last week right, so I feel good about it. I feel like I'm on a good path.
Yeah, I got Washington. I did not get the rest of them.
Yeah. You went 1 for 3, which is a baseball is pretty good.
That's okay.
Yeah. You'll bounce back this week. I have confidence.
Yeah, totally.
You picked the other games right, though. I'll give you that.
Yeah. We'll see.
All right. I meant last week, obviously. We don't know this week whether you picked games right or not.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have the game that your humble podcast hosts have been waiting for. We have the Iowa Hawkeyes coming to Dinkytown to visit the Minnesota Golden Gophers. This is a 6:30 p.m. game on NBC. This is the Big Ten Saturday night game, and I can hear the theme song in my head as I say those words. This is a high-profile rivalry game. Mm-hmm. The line is Iowa by 2.5. So Minnesota and Iowa have had really similar seasons so far, John.
Yeah.
Both won big against overmatched foes in 2 of their games, but lost their tilts against power conference foes in heartbreaking fashion. Iowa had a field goal made against them to lose against Iowa State, while Minnesota missed the game winner against North Carolina. Both teams desperately want to get to 3-1. You don't want to start the year 2-2 for any reasons, as that means bowl eligibility is in jeopardy. This is a must-win game for both teams. Iowa, with that favorable schedule, still feels like they have an outside shot at a playoff bid, but that talk ends if they lose to Minnesota, man. That's over if they lose the pig again. And Minnesota needs to beat Iowa as its next 2 games. It will be underdogs in against Michigan and USC. So there's a lot on the line in Minneapolis Saturday other than a 100-pound bronze pig named Floyd. Mm-hmm. The players and fan bases love Floyd, but there's so much more to this game than a pig. These teams are both desperate for wins. For Iowa's part, they played a too close for comfort game against Troy last weekend, in which they got burned several times in the secondary and once on special teams, which is very un-Iowa-like, John.
Yep.
Iowa's shown a little bit of vulnerability in the secondary these first few games, so that's something to watch. That said, this is still an excellent defense, ranking 29th in the country in total D and giving up 4.64 yards per play. Conversely, Minnesota currently ranks 5th in the country in total defense, giving up just 3.5 yards per play. Mm-hmm. So the Gophers and Hawkeyes have both been extremely stingy on defense thus far. Iowa's D has star players like DB Sebastian Castro and linebacker Jay Higgins. DL Ethan Herkett for Iowa already has 2 sacks on the D line, so he's a freak. Y.A. Black's back for another year. He's always good. Minnesota stars aren't household names the same way Iowa's are, but guys like linebacker Cody Lindenberg, quarterback Ethan Robinson, safety Kerry Brown, and defensive tackle Devin Eastern are making a name for themselves so far this year. So these are 2 great defenses, John, I think. Mm-hmm. When you look at the offenses, things get a little bit murkier. The good news for the Iowa offense is that running back Caleb Johnson is a star, averaging 8 yards per carry so far, and he's been the focal point of the offense. Dude is electric. Kirk Ferentz team running the ball is what you expect, and you expect them to run it well, and that's what they're doing. The passing game's been more problematic, however. Cade McNamara is completing 64% of his passes, which is good, but for just 6.3 yards per attempt with 3 TDs and 2 picks. He's also taken 3 sacks. So his accuracy has been decent, but his passes aren't going very far, and he's not making a difference throwing the ball downfield. Iowa needs somebody to step up, whether it's wide receivers like Jacob Gill and Reese Vanderzee or tight ends like Luke Lachey and Addison Estringa. Mm-hmm. It's going to take some plays downfield if they're going to win on Saturday. The question is who steps up and does it? How does it get schemed open? Because so far the Iowa offense has not had answers in the passing game, and that's got to change come Saturday, as it's going to get tougher to run over Minnesota than the teams Iowa already played on the schedule. And then for Minnesota's offense, running back Darius Taylor's been the truth. He's only got 188 yards so far, but on 7.5 yards per carry, 85 yards receiving, 4 total TDs. He needs to run the ball a little better than he has so far, but for Minnesota to put up big points on Saturday, but he's done a really good job. And then the key to this offense is signal caller Max Brosmer, man. completing an absurd 69% of his passes with a lot of drops. So it should be closer to 80. He's thrown for 8.1 yards per attempt. So he's not just dinking and dunking. He's stretching the field at times with 3 TDs and 1 pick. So, John, how do you see this breaking down between the Hawkeyes and the Gophers? I just think that these teams are, it's not exactly looking at the mirror, but these are very similar teams who are really familiar with each other.
They're super familiar with each other. Look, this is going to be a close game. It always is. I don't see it being any different this year. It's really, to me, it's going to come down to who has a more balanced attack on offense. We have seen Iowa be able to run the ball incredibly well, mostly against inferior opponents. I know they did pretty well against Iowa State too, so that was good. So you're able to see Caleb Johnson be a star, in which he is.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
So far, I'm not seeing anything on the passing game getting a lot better. It seems like it's maybe, statistically better than what it was last year. Obviously, I think anything is better, is an upgrade to Deacon Hill at this point. Sorry, but it's the truth. And so we're seeing more competence, but it still looks a little messy. Cade still is just making some interesting mistakes for a veteran QB like him, which is not something you would expect. His accuracy really is up and down. He's not getting it to some people that you would think should be coming down with the ball all the time. I mean, not getting Lachey involved in the game as much as you would expect. So it's very inconsistent, and that's the thing. So are you going to get Cade consistent, or is he going to be up and down and unpredictable and throwing picks or just off the mark entirely, which he's done that. So we're going to have to see. I expect their running game to look great. But I'm not entirely sure how that passing offense is going to go. Now, on the other hand, with Minnesota, you're seeing them pass to run, which is crazy. Something we have not seen in I don't know how long, decades probably.
Ever.
I think
not in my lifetime, man.
Yeah,
Minnesota has never been a pass to run team until this year, ever.
And finding success. Yes, there's been a number of drops, which have been some crucial moments, but you're seeing that change. You're seeing that improve. You're seeing these receivers come down with the ball now, and you're seeing Max Brosmer see the field and spread it around.
Yes.
And which does eventually open up the running game. And not only are you able to see him throw downfield, you're seeing him throw to the running backs, which is having quite a bit of success. So there's that extra wrinkle in there as well. And Darius is excellent at catching the ball.
He's great.
So you're not only going to see Darius as a running threat, but he's also someone you can throw the ball off to if need be, and he can make things happen. He will make plays. He'll make guys miss. So I think
4, 5, 6 yards, keep the offense on schedule.
Yep. So I just think offensively, Minnesota's more dynamic. I really think so. Yes, Johnson is a star, but I think if you can limit him, you're not going to, I think in the way that our Minnesota's secondary is playing right now, I just don't see Cade McNamara as much of the threat or that passing game in general. But the key will be to stopping Johnson. Defensively, yes, Iowa's solid. Their run defense is excellent.
Yes. Fantastic.
But as we've seen, some holes in the secondary. So I think it's a very interesting matchup. It could go either way.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm seeing now, Minnesota definitely has started out slow in the first quarter, but by the end of the first half, they really get things rolling. Where on the flip side, Iowa, it's generally taken until well into the third quarter before you see their offense start to move.
Offense really kick into gear. Yeah.
And that includes Johnson in some of those games. So, and you're not dealing with inferior opponents now where they're just going to run out of gas and not be able to keep up. You're dealing with another Power 5 comparable team that has studs all over the field, just like you. So it is, I think, technically a coin flip. I think that's fair to say with this game because it generally always is.
Yep.
But it's going to be huge. There's a lot on the line for both teams here. This is a massive, massive game for both squads.
Massive game. I mean, not just for the teams, but for the arc of the programs under their respective coaches.
Yep. 100%.
Because Kirk Ferentz is under fire and PJ Fleck is under fire, both of them, in a way that they haven't been in a long time, either of them. So they both really need this victory. And that makes this game even more compelling with how bad both teams need it.
Yep.
Daniel Jackson's the Gophers' leading receiver. And in my opinion, John, he needs to be targeted even more on Saturday. Yep. He's too prolific and productive to be averaging 50+ yards per game. So I understand that the competition, they haven't needed to get him the ball as much, but I think I want to see them get him the ball a little more, have him a little closer to 100 yards. Elijah Spencer has been a good second banana to Darius, while Christian Driver and Lemeki Brockington both have flash, but they both need to be more consistent making plays when they get the chance. Mm-hmm. That's going to be the key to this game to me. This game will be decided by turnovers and explosive plays. Yep. Those two stats will determine who wins and who loses. Iowa might have the slight edge in turnovers just due to past history, although Minnesota has forced a lot of turnovers this year as well. That said, I tend to think that Cade McNamara's struggles are real.
Yep.
I think that his inability to push the ball downfield is the Achilles heel for this Iowa attack. And I expect Minnesota to come out and make more plays in the downfield passing game than Iowa makes. To me, that's the difference in the game. I think the team with more explosive plays wins. I also think both teams turn the ball over multiple times. Both the defenses are playing really well, and both teams are going to be trying to generate explosive plays. And when you generate explosive plays, you're also taking chances. So I would expect each of these teams to turn the ball over a couple times and score off of those turnovers. Mm-hmm. And the team that does the best, maybe stopping the other team from scoring off turnovers, along with generating those explosive plays, is going to win. So I have the Minnesota Golden Gophers 27, the Iowa Hawkeyes 24. And I know that sounds a little high scoring for this game, but like I said, I think there's going to be turnovers on both sides, and I think both teams are going to benefit and score on short fields.
I'm with you on that. I think that I think what we've seen with Minnesota's defense being much more aggressive,
aggressive
and violent, and I think that if Cade is having issues against inferior opponents, being able to, complete passes or not get pressured or, just, making crazy mistakes, I think that he's going to have a heck of a day here with Corey Heatherman and what he plans on doing, what he likes to do. I think there's going to be pressure on him all game long. That's how you keep this team off balance. And if you can keep him, confused or running for his life, I think that's definitely going to work in Minnesota's favor, because to me, I agree. I think Cade is a problem. I think that he is the problem on that offense right now. And I can see that Minnesota continuing to cause issues for that. So now I also think that this is going to be a higher scoring game. And I think turnovers are definitely going to come into play, but I think it's going to be who is capable of making more of those big plays. And I think that Minnesota is more well-equipped for that. So I see Minnesota winning 31 to Iowa 24.
Okay. So we both have Iowa the same, and I just see a field goal win and you see a touchdown win.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Very similar breakdowns. The thing about what was I was just had on the top of my go if you were going to say something. I just lost my train of thought.
No, I just think Minnesota is going to continue with their ball hawking. I think that that Cade is going to be prone to that, and I having players like Kerry Brown out there who has amazing hands. I know Justin Wally's not going to be there, but I'm really not that concerned.
Just because Iowa doesn't have a lot of threats on the outside.
Exactly, and you have Ethan Robinson.
And Zaquan Bryan has played pretty well as a third corner.
Yes, he has. So he's been in the right position. I mean, he almost came down with an interception at the North Carolina game, I believe. And so had he just held on to it, that would have been it too. So I just think that I don't think the passing game is going to be any good. I think Iowa is going to be forced to give Johnson the ball like 40 times or more, and they're just going to hope to God that he can do enough and make it work.
Yeah, and I think he will have his moments. I think he'll probably break off a long touchdown run at some point, but I agree with you. Which team can generate more explosive plays? Mm-hmm. And I just think you're saying, which do you trust more? Do you trust the Iowa passing game or the Minnesota running game to figure it out?
Yeah.
Because the Minnesota passing game has been really good and the Iowa running game has been really good. So which one do you trust to figure it out? And I trust the Minnesota running game to figure it out a little bit in a game when it needs to.
Yep.
And I think we see Minnesota throw to run, and I think that throws Ferentz off his game because Ferentz doesn't like when you throw first. He has a hard time. Historically, the teams like Jeff Brom's Purdue, who beat Ferentz teams most of the time, are the ones that throw to open up the run.
Yep.
That has been the formula to beat Iowa for a lot of teams that have beaten Iowa. So I think that really bodes well those are the strengths of the Gopher offense this year.
Yep.
My only question is if Max Brosmer if the lights are too big for him. They were a little too big at North Carolina in the first half. But I think he's been so much better since then, since that first half. And he was also, if you look at that last drive against North Carolina, that should have been the game-winning drive that he led. You can't fault him because our kicker missed a field goal. He put him in a position to win, and he's just been better and better. And I think we see him. I think this will be a signature Max Brosmer game. I think, he'll be something like 22 for 33 for 225 yards, couple touchdowns, maybe a pick.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be more than what Cade can do.
I 100%
significantly
agree.
more.
Yeah. Totally agree. And I do, it's in, do I trust Iowa's receiving ability over Minnesota's ability to actually run the ball? And knowing Callahan's offensive lines usually do gel. They take a little while. They start out slow. And knowing what Minnesota has at running back, not just Darius Taylor, I think there's more talent. So I think Minnesota does have an edge offensively. But it's a rivalry game. Lots of things going to happen. We'll see.
I remember what I was going to say. The thing that Heatherman does, the defensive coordinator from Minnesota, that I have not seen past Minnesota DCs do, that he's willing to do, is that he will run blitz defensive backs on obvious running downs on a regular basis. So he makes it really uncomfortable. He's like, oh, you want to run the ball? We're going to outnumber you in the box. And he's going to do that to Kirk Ferentz, and he's going to dare him to pass and see if he can do it. And I just don't think Iowa's going to be able to pass well enough. I think they'll have some production.
Sure.
I think Cade will throw for a touchdown pass at some point, but I just don't think they're going to have enough production to overcome the Gophers. So that's what I want to say, that I think that willingness to blitz and get aggressive on running downs, I think is going to put Iowa behind the chains. And that's going to be the key for the Minnesota defense.
Agreed.
Good. I was really stressed about that, John. I was worried I wasn't going to remember until after the pod. And then you get so mad when you do that. And you're like, I could have said it.
Yep.
All right. Next up, we have the Michigan State Spartans going out east to visit the Boston College Eagles. This is a 7 p.m. game on the ACC network. A lot of ACC network this week, John.
Yeah.
The line is Boston College, -6.5. Boston College is led by prolific, productive, dazzling signal caller Thomas Castellanos, who completes nearly 65% of his passes for 11 yards per attempt, which is ridiculous. 9 TDs, but also 2 picks, and he's been sacked 5 times. The guy is a dynamo. And while he makes turnover-worthy mistakes on a regular basis, he makes plays with his arms and with his legs that have you impressed. I think stopping him is the key to slowing down this Eagles offense. You got to remember Castellanos in the run game too, as he can be effective there. So BC has 3 running backs it uses in Ward, Robichaux, and Richard, and Lewis Bond is the top receiver so far, and then it's a lot of guys trying to prove they deserve targets. So signal caller Aiden Childs has been up and down for Michigan State. The Sparty QB, he makes dazzling plays, but he also throws a lot of incompletions with a 57% completion rate, and he's also thrown 4 picks to go with 4 TDs. So he's still learning. He will make turnover-worthy plays in every game until he eventually learns how to avoid doing that. If he ever does, he probably will, but probably not for a while. How long does that take? I don't know. He's a young player still. It'll be a thing where some weeks it's better than others, I think. Sparty has a good running back combo in Lynch, Adams, and Carter. They need to get those guys going if they're going to have success against BC. And then at receiver, they've got to get the ball to Nick Marshall and Montori Foster, as those are the guys who can make dynamic plays downfield. So this will be an exciting game filled with big plays. John, how do you see this one stacking up?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a very close game.
Yeah.
I think both teams are absolutely capable of making big plays downfield and having it be very, very exciting, high scoring. The difference here for me is Michigan State's running game. The fact that they can run the ball and they have
Mhm.
two really solid running backs who can do that. I don't see that with Boston College. I don't see their offensive line being able to have a. They're not very good at run blocking. I think that they're going to be forced to beat Sparty through the air. Now, Sparty's defense, although has some issues from time to time, like I mentioned before, they're a Joe Rossi coach defense. They're going to be in the right position. Sure, there'll be times where I think they'll make mistakes here and there, but I think the fact that they're going to be solid in being where they're supposed to be will help them out here, especially playing against someone who like Thomas Castellanos. Um, it really, to me, is going to come down to turnovers, and Castellanos plays a lot of hero ball.
Yeah.
He can sling it, and he's great when he's great, but sometimes when he makes a mistake, it's
Oh, he makes
usually
bad mistakes.
horrible.
Terrible mistakes.
Yeah. So, and to me, I think it's just going to come down to that and the line of scrimmage. And I think at this point in time, with what we've seen, surprisingly, which maybe we shouldn't have been so surprised considering it's Jonathan Smith, but Sparty
I'm
has the edge.
surprised. I thought they were going to be way worse than the line of scrimmage.
I thought so too, but they're
I did.
playing solid, man.
They are. No,
And
you're right.
I think at the line of scrimmage play, the ability to run the ball along with the passing game, I think Michigan State is going to come up with a win here.
What do you have their score?
I have Michigan State 35, Boston College 28.
All right. Well, I think that this will be, I agree with a lot of what you say, but man, Aiden Childs throws a lot of picks, man.
They both do, Castellanos.
They both do. They both do. But Aiden Childs has thrown more and has a worse TD interception ratio, like significantly worse. I just think that he's going to be a lot to stop. I think he's going to be hard for, Joe Rossi does not like to play an attacking style defense. He wants to sit back and let you make mistakes. And I think that's going to let Thomas Castellanos go off a little bit on them. And I think if he gets some confidence, I think he'll turn the ball over once or twice. But I think for every turnover Thomas Castellanos has, I think Aiden Childs is going to have 1.5.
Okay.
So if he has 2 turnovers, I think that MS Sparty's going to have 3 kind of thing. You know what I mean? So I could be wrong here. I could be misreading this entirely, but it seems like Bill O'Brien has this team in a good place, this Boston College team. It's on the road, which I think makes it harder. And I just think that Aiden Childs makes one too many mistakes, and that's the difference in the game. So I've got the Boston College Eagles 31, the Michigan State Spartans 24.
Okay.
All right, so we got another one we disagree on.
Yep.
Love all right. That. All right, last up, we made it to the last game, John.
All right.
We have the Purdue Boilermakers going to Corvallis to take on the Oregon State Beavers. This is a 7:30 p.m. game on the CW. So that's an interesting place to watch football.
Okay.
The line is Oregon State by 4.5. John, how do you see this one breaking down?
I just, after last week, I have little to no faith in Purdue.
That was rough.
It was so brutal. And I think I have a little more faith in their offense being able to produce more points in this game, but that defense, it's brutal, dude. And you would think with Ryan Walters that there would be a better defense going on.
That's his thing.
Yeah, that's his thing.
To be fair, his best defensive player plays for Texas A&M now.
That's true.
So he got, it is a thing where Purdue so far has had more trouble than some of the other schools in keeping their talent.
Yeah.
NIL wise.
Well, with Purdue offensively, I just got to see a bounce back in the passing game and the running game. I got to see Hudson Card do what I know he is actually, capable of doing. He just, Notre Dame's defense was just suffocating. And they can run the ball. And I think Oregon State can be ran on. I think they can be thrown on. We saw Oregon do that pretty successfully. Yep. I know they're Oregon though, not Purdue. Oregon State's pass rush was not great and their secondary did get picked apart. So again, I think Hudson Card is going to be able to do some damage here. And like their defense in general sometimes just looked out of sync, and also they looked very undersized. They're not very big. Purdue may have a bit of an advantage there at the line of scrimmage, and just overall, I think in just the players. I think Purdue's offense matches up well against Oregon State's defense. I think they're going to be able to take advantage of some of that here. But Oregon State's offense was pretty decent against a really good Oregon Ducks.
It's true.
But they have a dual threat quarterback with Giovanni McCoy, who was able to throw enough. He had a 94.6 QBR against Oregon, which was pretty solid, and he was able to also run the ball for 52 yards, so he can move.
Yeah.
And they also have he's not very big, but he's powerful. This Anthony Hankerson, who's a really good running back, he was able to do some damage against Oregon, especially up at once he got into the red zone near the goal line. He's tough to take down. So I think Purdue's defense could be tested here. Obviously, this is not Notre Dame, but this could be a little bit of a back and forth is what I'm seeing, because both defenses are not fantastic.
Right.
So I think you're going to see some scoring here.
Yeah, agree.
It's just whose playmakers come out on top and who can make more plays and who can run the ball better. And we've seen oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name right now. Maccabee have really good games.
Legs.
Yeah, crazy legs. He sometimes he has amazing games, but then sometimes it's just like he can't get anything going or produce
anything going.
So he's very inconsistent. So we got to see him be able to look solid here and be able to help out Hudson Card and take some pressure off him. And
it's a pride game for that Purdue offensive.
It really is.
Line. I mean, they got run over last week. Both of them.
Absolutely. So I think Purdue really has to save face here and be able to pull out this win. It doesn't have to be a blowout, but you've got to make it look convincing. I do have Purdue winning. I think that they're going to be able to pull this out. But I think it's going to be back and forth. And I see Purdue winning 30 to Oregon State's 21.
Sure. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think it's going to be high scoring. I think there's going to be big plays. I think there's going to be turnovers. I think this is going to be exciting football. I'm a little sad I won't be able to watch it live.
Yeah.
Little sad I won't be able to, but that such is the way of the world sometimes. But it is going to be a great game. I just think, man, Purdue has not been dynamic enough for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just have not shown they can do it against an opponent with a pulse. And that scares me a lot. Yeah. Whereas I feel like Oregon State is a little more proven. So I might regret this, but I'm taking I think it's going to be high scoring. I think it might even go into overtime. I've got the Oregon State Beavers 31, the Purdue Boilermakers 28. And frankly, if this game was in West Lafayette, I'd pick Purdue. I would. But the fact that it's in Corvallis and they have that really annoying chainsaw thing that they do on 3rd and 4th downs.
It's so bad.
I've been to a game there. It's so painful. You can even hear it over the TV. But but if you are there for a game, by the end of it, my dad turned in the middle of a game. The Gophers were winning and it was raining and it was up big. And he said, "Would you quit it?" Like somebody was going to listen to him. He was like, "Would you quit it?" I was like, "Dad, they're not going to stop doing the chainsaw thing just because you're annoyed." I was annoyed too, but it was like halfway through the 3rd quarter and he was just over it.
Yep. I don't blame him.
And I think that starts to wear on you when you're the visiting team. It does. And in a close game, I think, that kind of thing. Oregon State has a really good crowd always. They're big fans. It's a long road trip, so Purdue probably won't have very many fans of their own with. I just think that they're going to ride that energy of the home crowd to a close victory in a high-scoring shootout. But do I have a bunch of confidence in that pick? No.
Yeah.
I could also see Purdue coming out, being the better team up front, taking care of business, and winning by 2 scores.
Yeah.
Could see that as well.
Same. Yeah. Well, it'll be a fun week, man. This is where you're going to find out a lot about all these teams and who everyone truly is. So it's
come back on Sunday because we're going to either be really, really happy or as miserable as 2 podcasters could ever be. So get excited for that. that's just the way it's going to be. So
I really don't want to feel the
no
same way I felt. I really don't want to feel the same way I felt against you when we lost to UNC. I can't deal with it.
Don't want it. Don't want it at all. Want to get the victory for sure.
Yeah.
All right, John, anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Yes, as always, you want to find We Live for Saturday, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, and Podcast Addict. You can find us on Twitter at We Live for B1GSat. You can find Mike at Alibaba26, and you can find me at Norwegian Gopher. You can also email us, We Live for Saturday, b1g@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for rocking with us. Come back. Be ready to come back for an exciting and either euphoric or tragic show on Monday. So get excited about that in advance, but mostly get excited about watching an awesome slate of Big Ten football this weekend.
Yes.
And take care. We'll see you next time.